In this video, we will go over the digestive system, circulatory system, and the urogenital system of the dogfish shark. The dogfish shark uses internal fertilization. To do this, the male dogfish shark takes its claspers and inserts it into the female. This is also a clasper that's not attached to a specimen. And the claspers are held there by these spines. And the egg is fertilized inside the body of the dogfish shark. I have a male dogfish shark. So it has the mesorchium way up at the top. The ductus deferens runs all the way down. It has 2 testes. This right here is the seminal vesicle. Right at the bottom is the sperm sac. And then at the end of the pelvic fins are the claspers. I don't have a female shark, so I'll show you a picture from the book. But the female has ovaries, mesovarium, oviduct, mesotubarium, and the uterus. The female dogfish shark also does not have claspers.
To begin, I am going to go through the digestive system anatomy of the shark. The digestive system is responsible for breaking down food by using hydrochloric acid, pepsin, and contractions of the stomach wall. Sharks have a large J-shaped stomach that are lined with rugae and allow their stomach to expand considerably. So the stomach is right here. They also have an esophagus that is lined with papillae and secretes mucus to help move food to the stomach. That is under right here. There are 2 major digestive organs in a shark's primitive gut. The liver, which is very large, that is this entire structure right here, and the pancreas, that is right here, that consists of a ventral lobe that attaches to the duodenum and a dorsal lobe. Both the liver and the pancreas have ducts in them that allow them to empty into the duodenum. This organ right here is the spleen. The spleen is a large mass of lymphoid tissue and is not really a digestive organ. The spleen functions in producing, storing, and destructing erythrocytes and the destruction of harmful invaders. Next to the spleen here is the valvular intestine. Up here is the bile duct, which is a thin tube that goes from the liver to the small intestine. It allows a fluid called bile to go from the liver and gallbladder into the small intestine, where it helps digest fat in food. Lastly, here is the rectal gland. It is under here, right there. And that functions as an osmoregulatory organ. Their digestive system is related to their ecological niche because the liver stores oil and reduces its density. Now, focusing on the circulatory system of a shark, I am going to describe the function of their heart. Around the heart is the pericardial cavity. The heart consists of a conus arteriosus, ventricle, atrium, and sinus venosus in an S-shaped configuration on the anterior end. oxygen poor blood flows into the sinus venosus, which is a triangular, thin-walled chamber dorsally located right here. Blood is then pumped into the atrium, which is a dark pouch-like chamber on either side of the ventral muscular ventricle. So it would be these two structures right here are the atrium. From the atrium, the blood is pumped into the ventricle, which is right here. The ventricle then pumps blood into the conus arteriosus, which is a tube-like structure containing semilunar valves, and that is right here. Valves prevent backflow of the blood, which helps maintain an unidirectional blood flow in the shark.
For objective number 3, I will describe the systemic circulation of the shark and explain how the arteries are arranged to transport blood from the gills to the rest of the body and back to the heart. The conus arteriosus flows blood into the ventral aorta, and this whitish tube here branches off into 5 afferent branchial arches. So in here, we have the ventral aorta, and it would branch off into 5 afferent branchial arches. And the branchial arches pass it off into the gills. Blood from the collector loops flows through 4 efferent branchial arches, and their convergence forms the dorsal aorta. The internal carotid arteries up here are formed by the Pyoidine arteries that join with the paired dorsal aortae. And this artery passes through the carotid foramen of the chondrocranium to supply blood to the brain. The celiac artery is the most cranial that arises just after the dorsal aorta and enters the pleuroperitoneal cavity. The gastrohepatic artery gives rise to the gastric and hepatic arteries. The hepatic artery turns cranially, coursing alongside the common bile ducts and enters the liver, and the gastric artery divides into a dorsal and ventral gastric artery, and it supplies the dorsal and ventral portion of the body of the stomach. And the anterior intestinal artery gives off ring-like branches to the valve and supplies the internal anatomy of the intestine. After flowing through the kidney, blood flows, the tail is drained by the caudal vein that lies ventral to the artery in the humeral arch. Renal portal veins are caudal veins at the anus that pass laterally and dorsally to the kidney here. And it sends blood through the kidney. So it's not quite apparent in the actual specimen here. So I drew a quick little thing. So here we have the liver, and this is our renal portal vein. This is our caudal vein down here. After flowing through the kidney, blood flows into the posterior cardinal veins, which widen into the posterior cardinal sinuses. So on either side of the dorsal aorta, we will have the posterior cardinal veins, and then further up here, we have the posterior cardinal sinuses. And then drainage of the head region is associated with the anterior cardinal sinuses located dorsal to the gill arches. Up here. Venous blood from the capillaries is transported to the liver. The liver has access to all chemical substances transported from the viscera. The hepatic portal vein is composed of the gastric vein that is formed by the dorsal and ventral gastric vein that drain the stomach, and the lineomesenteric vein that drains the right side of the valvular intestine. And the anterior intestinal vein here, this drains the right side of the valvular intestine, and the lineomesenteric vein drains the spleen and the stomach. Lateral abdominal veins on either side here receive blood from adjacent trunk areas, and then hepatic arteries up in here course alongside. A little bit of a different view here. This is the sinus venosus. This is our liver. The hepatic vein will be right here. For objective number 4, I will explain how a shark eliminates waste, and I will include a description of the kidney anatomy. The purpose of the urinary system is to purify the body of its nitrogenous waste. Opisthonephrine kidneys are elongated, brownish, strap-like organs against the dorsal wall. It extends almost the entire length of the pleuroperitoneal cavity. In both males and females, the caudal portion is urinary in function. In males, the anterior end of the kidney has no urinary function but contributes to the reproductive fluid. The kidney is drained by the archinephric duct, and in a mature male, the duct is modified into a reproductive duct with no urinary function. And then urine is drained from the caudal end of the kidney through an accessory urinary duct into the cloaca. And in females, the caudal portion empties into the cloaca through the urinary